child molester and suspected serial killer Sidney Cook. A diabolical monster. Born 18th of April 1927, Sidney Cook is an English convicted child molester and suspected serial killer serving 2 life sentences. He was the leader of a paedophile ring suspected of murdering up to 20 young boys in the 1970s and 1980s. Cook and other members of the ring were convicted of 3 killings in total, although he was only convicted of 1 himself. Cook is suspected by police of killing the 3 boys within the ring. He was named by gang member Leslie Bailey as the killer of Mark Tilsley in 1984 when Bailey confessed to the murder, and he's also suspected to have been involved in the murder of a 6-year-old boy, Barry Lewis, which Bailey was also convicted. Cook's gang have also been the subject of several investigations into possible links to the disappearances of 2 young boys, Martin Allen and Vishal Malhotra, who were abducted from London in 1979 and 1981 respectively. Cook was nicknamed Hissing Sid by colleagues and was described by the Guardian newspaper in 1999 as Britain's most notorious paedophile. The gang rape and killing of Jason Swift. In November 1985, a group led by Cook had each paid £5 to gang rape 14-year-old Jason Swift in what the media described as a homosexual orgy. After Swift's body was found in a shallow grave by a dog walker, an investigation by the Metropolitan Police led to the arrest of Cook along with 3 accomplices, Leslie Bailey, Robert Oliver, and Stephen Barrell. On the 12th of May 1989, Cook was sentenced at the Old Bailey to 19 years in Wandsworth Prison for the manslaughter of Swift. The group were originally charged with murder before all were convicted of manslaughter. Oliver received a lesser sentence of 15 years but was released from prison after 8 and changed his name to Carl Curtis. In July of 2013, he was jailed for 3 years after being found guilty of luring children into his home in Maidstone, Kent. This was due to the breach of court order which banned him from having unsupervised contact with children. Bailey and other gang members told authorities that Cook was among those who murdered Mark Tilsley, who was a 7-year-old boy in Wokingham, Berkshire, on 1st of June 1984. Bailey claimed that Tilsley was lured away from a Wokingham funfair by Cook with the promise of a big bag of sweets. In 1991, the Crown Prosecution Service declined to prosecute Cook for Tilsley's murder as he was already in prison for the manslaughter of Swift. As Bailey was the only one who confessed to Tilsley's murder, the CPS decided to only formally press charges against him for the killing, despite him and other gang members naming Cook as the perpetrator, as fellow paedophiles are not considered reliable witnesses in a court of law. Despite this, Bailey's trial was highly unusual in that he explicitly named Cook and another man, Lenny Smith, as the killers, despite them having not been charged. Cook's role in the murder was not fully investigated until 1999 after Cook's release from prison. By this time, Bailey had been murdered in prison in October of 1993. Cook has indicated that he knows where Tilsley's body is, but refuses to disclose the exact location. The murder of Barry Lewis. Cook is also suspected of involvement in the murder of another boy, 6-year-old Barry Lewis. Was convicted in June 1991. Lewis had been snatched from the street while playing with friends in Walworth, South London, on September the 15th, 1985. His body was found in Essex in April 1986, only 4 days from the discovery of Swift's body. In 1990, Bailey confessed to the police that Cook's gang had abducted, drugged and raped Lewis before Bailey had been tasked with disposing of the body the next day. Bailey had also told police detailed information about the murder which confirmed his testimony as genuine and led police to the location of Lewis's grave. As with Tilsley, Bailey implicated Cook in Lewis's murder. Although he was the only one convicted of the murders of Lewis and Tilsley, police believe Cook was the leader of the gang. While in prison, Cook reportedly boasted of his ring killing about 15 children to cellmates. Members of the ring also reportedly made reference to killing Lewis, whose murder was at this point still unsolved, but which detectives on the Swift inquiry were already aware of. One prisoner, Ian Gabb, felt so disgusted by the confessions that he volunteered to give information to the authorities. Police set up Operation Orchid to further investigate murders that could be linked to the ring. Gabb informed police that a ring member named Lenny Smith had been involved in the group's murders along with Cook. Police subsequently put Smith under surveillance and he was soon arrested for indecent assault on a child in a public toilet. Gabb also provided detectives with maps he had drawn based on descriptions of where the ring members claimed they had buried their victims, to which police responded by searching several sites of interest. Operation Orchid officers eventually solved the then unsolved murders of Mark Tilsley and Lewis after Bailey formally confessed. Gabb volunteered to remain in prison longer than his own sentence to continue assisting the police, and was later rewarded by being given a reduced sentence. Cook's sentence for the manslaughter of Swift was reduced to 16 years on appeal in 1989, when he was paroled 9 years later in 1998. He told an appeals court that Bailey was the ringleader of the gang. Cook's parole caused a huge public outrage, which was exacerbated by a plan to move him to a hostel near two schools, and the fact that Cook himself admitted that he might reoffend if he was released while in prison. Cook refused to take part in any rehabilitation sessions. Police refused to disclose the location to which he was being moved, smuggling him out of prison to avoid vigil for his victims. For the next 9 months, Cook lived in a suite of cells at Yeovil police station at his own request, rarely venturing out in public. Following an investigation by Channel 4 documentary programme Dispatches on October 29, 1998, Thames Valley Police reopened investigations concerning allegations of sex offences by Cook. He was arrested on the 26th of January 1999. 3 days later, Cook was charged at Reading Police Station with committing 18 sex offences, which occurred between 1972 and 1981 in South London, Berkshire, Kent, Tyne and Wear and Hertfordshire. He was moved back to prison on remand. Many of the offences had come to public attention after they were disclosed in the Channel 4 documentary. At his trial at Manchester Crown Court on October 5, 1999, Cook pleaded guilty to all but 8 of the charges, which were 4 counts of rape, 3 counts of indecent assault, and 1 count of buggering that occurred in 1981. These were abandoned by the judge, who ordered them to lie on file. Following Cook's sentences, the NSPCC director, Jim Harding, said, "The children who were abused by Sidney Cook suffered some of the vilest and cruelest sex offences imaginable. He should never have been freed after serving his last sentence. He sincerely hoped he would never be given the opportunity to hurt another child again." On the 17th of December 1999 at Wolverhampton Crown Court, Cook received 2 life sentences by Judge David Poole, who told Cook that he would only be considered for release after he had served a minimum of 5 years in prison, and if the parole board was satisfied, he was no longer a danger to the public.